The entire subject of Buddha in Himalayan art can actually be quite confusing. In my experience, it's been very confusing and for a long time hard to explain because we're really dealing with two concepts here. We're dealing with, first of all, the baggage of what is the abstract conceptual meaning of Buddha, and then there is the art meaning of Buddha. And these two often intermingle, and people can get very confused. So we don't deal with the abstract meaning. We're talking about Buddha appearance as it was originally described in the early sutras. So we're talking about the 32 major and 80 minor marks of perfection, which a Buddha has. His physical form has these 32 and 80 characteristics. That's what we talk about in art. But of course, in art, we don't have all of these 32 and 80. We have actually very few. We have the Ushnisha, we have the Urna, we have the long earlobes, we have the three lines under the neck, often we have the curls. The hair is done in tight curls, many of them. Side by side. Then we have certain gestures, and then we have the posture, generally the Vajra posture of the Buddha. This is what we're talking about with Buddha appearance. Now, we also have to separate out painting from sculpture, because we're dealing with a time period nearly 2,000 years, and we're dealing with many different cultural groups and regions, and all of those individuals and artists have different ideas at different times, and they have different aesthetic preferences. So we have a tremendous variety of art forms, and we especially have to separate the sculpture from the painting. They're two different things, and the painting is far easier to understand. The sculpture is vastly more difficult when it comes to trying to really identify specific Buddhas. So back to painting. So with painting, we really have to break it down into really common Buddhas and uncommon Buddhas. And what we mean by this is the common Buddhas are the main Buddha forms that appear in art, and then what are the uncommon Buddhas? So the Buddhas that are mentioned in the sutras and talked about, but they're really not commonly found in art as a major central figure. Here it's important to differentiate between central figure and then secondary or minor figures. Now, the main, most important common Buddhas are, of course, Shakyamuni Buddha, but then we have Akshobhya, Amitabha, Maitreya, but Maitreya only when he's in Buddha appearance, Medicine Buddha, Nageshvara Raja Buddha, and then we sometimes have the 5 symbolic Buddhas represented in Buddha appearance. Now, the 5 symbolic Buddhas are a Vajrayana Buddhist construct. They have to do with tantric theory, and how related or unrelated some of them are to the sutra counterpart, such as Amitabha in the sutras versus Amitabha in the tantras, Akshobhya in the sutras versus Akshobhya in the tantras. That's a whole other discussion. So now, all of these Buddhas I've mentioned, Shakyamuni, Akshobhya, Amitabha, Maitreya, Medicine Buddha, they all have Buddha appearance as their standard appearance in art for painting and sculpture. Now, the figures that are not really commonly found as central figures are Buddhas that we know about, but we might be slightly familiar with, such as the Buddhas of the 3 times, 7 Buddhas of this age, 8 medicine Buddhas, 35 confession Buddhas, but they're rarely depicted as central figures in their own composition. If it was 35 confession Buddhas, then you would have 35 different paintings. You'd have a large set of compositions. So this is not common. Now, to understand the common Buddhas and to identify them, then you have to really be looking at color, attributes and special characteristics, gestures, the hand gestures in Sanskrit called mudra, and then the animal support under the throne. What is the insignia? What is the decoration, the animal that is on a throne? So these are the main points for identification, which is why painting is more important to look at initially in studying this topic, because with sculpture you do not have color, and often the sculpture can be removed from the throne. So you're really only looking at the possibility of identification through gestures, which is very complicated. Now, a basic color for all Buddhas is gold. But then we have some Buddhas, such as Amitabha, who is traditionally red. Maitreya is gold. Medicine Buddha is blue. Nageshvara Raja Buddha is blue. So we have certain standard colors for certain Buddhas. And then the 5 symbolic Buddhas each have their own color. So this is how we approach the topic of understanding the characteristics and identifying the name of what image we're looking at.